All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Dr. Vernita Glenn-White. I am a strategic transformational coach. I am also the CEO and founder of Glenn-White Global Solutions, which is a high-level training and personal growth company where we help high-level individuals break their personal glass ceilings so they can show up more powerful in their careers and in their overall life. Our company also works to provide practical applications to complex situations in a variety of ways with individuals and groups. So I know that was a mouthful, and I am inviting one of my sorority sisters, one of my good friends, one of the type of person I love to be around and work with, Josette Sykes. And we're going to go through a few questions talking about what it means to be a professional woman, what it means to embrace brilliance, and what it means to connect your personal life to your professional life. So, Josette, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to get started.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Josette Sykes. I am a native Floridian, which a lot of people don't meet often, but I have in my lifetime met a lot of native Floridians. I went to Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University for my undergraduate, which is a bachelor's in public management. And I continued my education at the Florida State University to obtain my master's degree in public administration. And I actually jumped right into my field of public service straight out of undergraduate school. And while I was in graduate school, I had the awesome opportunity to be able to do that while I was working full time. And they helped me, not helped me, but I qualified for tuition reimbursement. So I got my master's degree while I was working full time in public service, actually in my area, which is rare, but not rare in some instances, because some people start out in their major degree area and some people kind of venture out and make their way back in to public service, which there are a variety of ways to work in public service, from your local governments, city, county, all the way up to state and federal, all within certain cities that you have that opportunity. So I was in Tallahassee, that's the capital, so I was able to jump right in. What else should I
Oh,
say?
no, that is great. I didn't know all of. I personally did not know all of that. So that is awesome. Can you tell a little bit more about what area of public service?
Um, State government mostly.
Okay.
And so I started out at Department of Environmental Protection, and then I moved on to the Executive Office of the Governor in his Office of Urban Opportunity. And I stayed there and did community redevelopment. That program did very well through that administration, that it was actually moved to an agency, which is, I moved from executive side of government into an agency, which became Department of Community Affairs. And then from Community Affairs, I went into health, Department of Health. So I've moved around several agencies, but I worked within community redevelopment and then community health, because during my master's, my focus in public administration was health administration and policy. So that's how the health piece comes in. So I also had a little bit of a stint in law school that I am going to go back and finish. So that's the other side of my career, that I switched after 12 years. I went back to school, and that was a monster, but it was a good monster in a way. It's a different type of education. It's not the same as going to undergraduate and graduate. It's definitely a very, very competitive, cutthroat environment, but I loved every minute of it. So I'm looking forward to going back and thriving in that environment in the future.
Wow, I didn't know that. Oh my goodness. Okay, we'll talk. I made a little note. We'll talk about that part. So, how would you describe yourself as a woman, both personally and professionally, or do you think that there isn't a difference?
In two ways, I think personally and professionally, there's a difference, because in business you have a if you're not employed for yourself, you are working for other individual, there's a business side to yourself that you do need to, there's a decorum, there's a way you need to operate in that world. And then your personal side is your more fun-loving, carefree side. So I do think that those two people, they coexist, but not at the same in the same space when you're in a working environment and then when you're in your personal environment. So, but one thing that does cross both professionally and personally for me is integrity. So on that note, on that particular characteristic, I believe that that applies to my life across the board.
Okay.
And whether I'm in a business setting or if I'm in my personal family and friend setting, my integrity is always going to guide me in all things that I'm thinking, doing, and your ethics, all that plays a part in both sides of your life.
Okay, that's a good point. So what I hear you say, and correct me if I don't get this right, your, I don't know if it's a personality or how you show up on the outside can be different in two different situations, but who you are, your
Mhm.
core, that thread should be the same, whether personally and professionally, no matter what. Like your core values, who you
Your
are.
Yes, your core values shouldn't change based on your environment. You should always operate under that. You should always be authentically you, but you do know how to turn on and turn off things in different environments, because your family environment doesn't need your business side all the time. They need um, your personal encouragement. They need different sides of you when you're with your family and friends versus when you're at work. The expectation is a little bit different.
Okay, I like that. Just the expectation of who you are is different, but not who you are at the core. All right, I
Yes.
love that. So you may or may not know that I wrote this book called Embracing Grit for Greatness, Becoming Professionally Powerful Through Personal Empowerment. And I wrote that book for that reason because I felt like I was two different people all the time. And I focused so much on one area, which is my professional life, obviously. And then my
Hmm.
personal life was a mess. And I was like, okay, we can't keep separating. And I wasn't separating like just personalities. It was like two different worlds. And it was like, you
Hmm.
can't keep doing that. So in the book, I want to break down just like the title. So I'm going to ask you a few questions
Okay.
about that. So the book is Embracing Grit. So what does
Mhm.
grit mean to you?
Um, the literal sense, it's more or less your determination, your endurance, your perseverance through um, different stages and seasons of your work career and your professional life. I mean, how do you buckle in during those difficult times? How do you sail through those easy, smooth sailing times? Um, your grit is always going to get you through that.
Okay, yes, I agree. So do you think that, so based on your professional experience and your schooling
Mhm.
experience, you have grit because no one goes through that, master's, bachelor's, working through that law school without grit.
Definitely, definitely. You have to use it with, and to touch on certain things, certain microaggressions that are within the workplace. It's not necessarily a racial thing. It also is sexism,
Mhm.
ageism. There's different things that you encounter, and sometimes you encounter that on with another individual that you see their experience, and that also has to determine how you operate with other individuals, because you've seen how they may have treated someone or treated you, what you've experienced. So your experiences also encompass what other people experience and how you experience that, which has been my experience. So I think your grit has to help you walk through how to handle and navigate those situations, um, definitely to benefit you in the end of all ends, but definitely for your benefit. You have to use your grit to operate and navigate through workplace, personal situations. You definitely have to figure out who you're going to be in that situation.
You actually answered the next question because I was going to ask you, do you think, because as professional women, we know that we have to have this grit in the workplace to climb up certain ladders and things like that. But then it's like sometimes I don't think we use as much grit in our personal lives to get what we want personally because we're so focused professionally. But you brought it up, in which a lot of women don't actually think that well, I don't want to say a lot. The women that I've talked to don't realize the amount of grit, determination, resiliency, and all of that they have to do in their personal lives, like relationships, family, friends. So, what made you? Well, I don't want to say what made you think that, but what? How did you get that realization? Thank you.
Just different settings, different situations that I've been in, that I've had to my reaction and my response was going to make or break situations. And that goes both ways, personally and professionally. How you respond to things or situations, make or break that environment for the most part, and how the tone of that will move forward. But in terms of trying not to bring your work issues home or into your personal life, that's where the grit exhaustion, if I can say that, comes into play, because sometimes you have used so much of it to get through your work environment, that when you are in your professional environment, when you're in your personal environment, you just have nothing else left to give, and it's not 100%. So you're exhausted there. So coming from your professional grit to your personal grit, which it should be one and the same, which it is, you're exhausted.
Wow. I wrote that down.
Personally.
Excuse me. I wrote that down, looking for the wording of what is it. I think you described that perfectly, that grit exhaustion is, and which is why sometimes it looks like we're focusing so much on our professional lives, but that's where we put all of our energy. But then it's like, well, we don't build out this other side of our lives so much. Like we want to, we have these desires, but like you said, we're exhausted to that point. Oh, wow. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to say, do I want to expand on that? What does that look like? Being exhausted personally with the grit, like you just don't want to, like, you know what I'm saying?
You may have other goals in your personal life that you want to attain, whether it's a healthier lifestyle, or you have other things you're trying to focus on, maybe getting out of debt, buying a home. Are you putting that 100% behind those goals in your life? Do you have enough grit to go keep pushing through once you get home, or once you get off of work, or once your work professional clock turns off? Are you able to turn on your personal clock to meet those goals and deadlines that you set for yourself? And oftentimes there's a restart button there on the personal life. You keep restarting trying to reach those same goals and points in your life that you want, that you have, when you do your vision board, you have all these things that you want to do, but when you have to shift focus to your professional side for majority of your hours of your day, how can you shift back to your personal side to meet those goals? And I often say or see people doing it, but they're also exhausted at the same time. So what's really the quality of your personal side experiencing when you don't have that cutoff, or don't if you don't equally give from your professional self to your personal self? How do you balance that? And that's probably what mid-career people experience in shifting. Like, how do I want to continue down this path? Because mid-career is a big chunk of people's lives until they get to that point of where they're advanced in their career. You're in your mid-career for a little time, you're swimming for a long time in that area. So how do you not become complacent on that side and then you're already sitting complacent in your personal side. So how do you keep pushing through? What rejuvenates women or individuals, women particularly in this setting, to keep pushing through, or keep themselves at 100%, to see all of their goals and vision boards and different things that they set out to do every year come to pass. Because sometimes I put the same thing on my vision board, certain
Yeah.
things I keep not reaching, it keeps showing up, but I have to get there because it's still there, it's still a part of the vision. So how do we switch that, how do we balance that, from taking, maybe putting the 75% into professional and 100% into personal, which will ultimately, if you are 100% on your personal side, you should be able to pull up your professional side, because that personal side is doing well. So
Right.
how do we switch our mindset to that? Because that's the part that I think at this point in my life I'm working on, the change of the mindset. Like, I need to flip this percentage around, because ultimately, if I get to retirement and I'm exhausted, what can I do?
Exactly.
At this point,
Exactly.
will I have anything to give back to myself at this point? So at that point, when that time arrives, so that's the part that I see. I would want someone to have told me to figure out that balance early on, so that I'm not constantly resetting on the personal side. That I have a steady flow of 100% grit on that side, that should flow back into professional side, not the other way around.
Exactly. Well,
So I
you
think we operate on that opposite end. We have to get back to the other way, to be personal 100%, and then it flows into professional instead of the other way around, because that exhausts us, I think.
I love that. And you answered my next few questions, because I was going to say, well, how would you describe greatness? And based on what you said, greatness professionally, of course, we know we attain what we wanted to attain, those goals. But then
Mhm.
greatness personally, it's like when you list out those things that you put on your vision board to be able to
Mhm.
accomplish those, that would feel like I did great over here. I did great over here too.
Yes.
I want to get to, because you talked about you wish someone had told you about focusing more on the personal side. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts about personal growth and personal development?
Um, I think that's the key to everything, because if you're not in tune with all of that, you're just going through the motions. You're not really doing um, what you set out to do. Yes, everyone needs and everyone can't be an entrepreneur and work for themselves and have all these great schedules and great other things going on. Most people have to work in a corporate setting. So I think when you have the ability to be happy on your personal side, um, you'll find a way to be happy at work. That will, you'll get through those 8 hours so that you can go home and be happy again. So you'll find a way to um, be positive on all ends when you're already, your cup is full from your personal side, that you've poured into yourself and others have poured into you on your personal side. When you learn to know that that's the most important side, and then the other side is secondary, we will you'll see a healthier workforce, quite frankly, because right now it's the other way around. We're trying to keep these employers happy versus keeping ourselves happy. So I think when we change that focus onto personal well-being and personal happiness and everything that is on that side, you can go into your workplace happier and not allow other things around you, or negative forces around you in those settings, to bring you down and make it difficult for you to be there, or difficult for you to use your grit. It's oftentimes when you get in those negative environments, you do not even want to give them that your best. You don't want to persevere.
Exactly.
You don't want to endure. You just want to let me just do whatever basic I need to get through this day, or get through whatever working with you entails and get home and be back to happy. So we have to figure out how to leave those things where they are and then come home and be better on this other side, and know that that's the look forward to, not just getting off, but going home and being full at home if you're not full in your workplace. And perhaps you might need to find another workplace if that's the case.
Right, right. So
So
so what are some ways that what does personal growth like look like? What are some tangible things that you may think? Because professional growth, we know that's probably somebody's training, somebody's webinar, somebody coming in, doing some, I guess, work retreats or whatever to know more about the company leadership skills. But what are some things like? How does that look? How do you think it should look or can look personally, like personal growth?
personally,
Mhm.
um, identifying that you want to have growth. A lot of times people don't realize that they have personal growth. They may not look back over 2 years or three, 5, 2, whatever the increments people are. People look at where they want to go with their lives, or what they want for their lives, or what that means. Do you want to go to a life coach? Do you want a career coach? Do you want more spiritual growth? What is it that you feel that you haven't done for yourself to help you grow? And maybe try those things to say, okay, actually, this did help, and that I do still incorporate those things that I learned at a retreat, or I still enjoy doing workouts or whatever that makes you feel good. Going on your annual girls trip, going on your monthly massage, all of those things for personal growth. If you keep it up and if you're consistent, um, then you realize, okay, yes, I have been doing those things, and maybe I have grown from them, or I haven't. So it's time to do something different. Um, I think for me, when I realized that I wasn't doing all my massages, I was like, I need to look, I need to go back, because I said I was going to do that for myself. And why have I not done that for myself? So have I not carved out enough time for myself? Am I still doing um, the most for other things versus for myself? Yes, you can still serve others, you can still do all of those things, but what have you done to help yourself grow? So if those things aren't contributing to your growth, you might need to change those things, because that's what you thought was going to help you, or what made you feel good. Maybe you might need to change those things in your life as well. So for me to go back and look at what I am doing versus what I said I was going to do, and how do I feel at that point when I'm reevaluating what I want to do for me or for my personal growth, and I change it. It's going to be something different from decade to decade, year to year,
Right.
as you keep going through these different age milestones. You definitely figure different things out for yourself, and you change them if you don't see any growth from those things that you did in your 20s to your 30s, and from your 30s to your 40s, and now getting ready to turn another corner in a couple years. That's going to look different as well. So I think you can go back and look at what feeds you and what makes you happy. And it's not necessarily anything, it doesn't have to be anything like a gift or a retreat. It could just be taking a day off, having time for yourself. And what is that done? What does it do for you when you do it? So yeah, I take a day when it could be a random day, Wednesday, whatever it is that I need to fill my tank up. If I'm getting to one of those points of personally that I'm like, I got to, figure some things out, then that's what I set out to do. And it's not overnight. It could take you a couple of months to figure that out,
Mm-hmm.
or to figure out if there's something in your life that's not serving you, that you can get rid of. It doesn't necessarily have to be something you need to learn. It could be something that's holding you down.
Right.
So you can, remove those barriers from your life, and see if that brings about any kind of personal growth or change for you too.
Okay. Yes, all of that is. I agree with all of that. I don't know about you because you mentioned like maybe you would need a life coach, career coach, spiritual coach, whatever the case may be. if you can't do it on your own. Some people can read some books, figure it out, but there's a lot of people probably need some help. I didn't know about the world of that type of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I just found that out like a couple of years ago. And then I went through my own journey
Mm-hmm.
and it was eye opening and all of that. So, what are your thoughts about if someone needs to seek outside help like a coach, not like a therapist or a counselor, because we know
Mm-hmm.
those are different. But what are your thoughts about that, especially for professional women who are like, I'm supposed to have it together, I'm supposed to be able to figure this out. Why do I need, or should I feel embarrassed that I need to go to someone to say, can you help me figure out this part of my life? What are your thoughts about that?
I don't think it's an embarrassment at all. I think sometimes we all have a million things we want to do, and we just don't know how to break those things down into how can I get there with what I have, and what do I need if I don't have it. So oftentimes you have to figure out, and it takes a third person, a second person to come in and help you sort that out, and help and coach you and say, try this, and let's look at these milestones, that if you do this for a quarter of the year, for 4 months, let's see what this is looking like. And then if not, let's switch gears. But that's the point, is to help you pull yourself through those different stages of it, coaching you through it, walking you through it. It's not necessarily a negative thing, but it's all about, who the right coach is, and if it's the right time for you, because sometimes you don't want to receive that either. You go through the flow of, you go through the notions or the actions of doing something for the sake of doing it because other people do it.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean that's a good fit for you, or that person is a good fit for you. You need to find what's a good fit for you, and take the outside, if you're serious about it, take the outside forces, thoughts, and opinions out, and get what you need for you in order to professionally power through changes, if that's what you're looking to do. Or improvement. It doesn't necessarily have to be changes. It can be, how can I
Exactly.
improve upon um, how I work in this environment, or how do I continue to climb this ladder in this environment, or how do I do it differently? How do I adjust to the changing work environment, because that's changing as well. Even if we go to this work from home setting,
Mhm.
that's going to be a whole nother set of issues that people
Yep.
are going to not make for themselves, but didn't realize they may have had from being in isolation, because that's essentially what is going to happen when you are in a work from home and team environment, when you still have to connect with people and do um, workshops and coalition meetings and all those types of things. How are you going to be able to do that when your main source of connecting with people was a part of your role?
Mm.
So how to change, how to grow in those changes, is it's important to have someone that can help you through it, whether they get you, whether it's the, how do I want to say it, whether it's the right type of coaching for you, or just because it's popular. Don't
Right.
do that. Don't do the coaching because you think it's popular. Do the coaching because you think it will help you, and you don't have to tell people that's what you're doing. if you
Exactly.
feel if you still feel threatened by someone knowing that that you'll be outed because you had some
Out it.
professional help. So you know I think that's been the secret for a long time. We just did not know that. So people had coaches, people
Best
had
kept
resume
secret.
writers. Yeah, exactly, that's the term I'm looking for. They've had resume writers, they've had interview coaches, you name it. People have done it. People have been paid to teach people how to do this and not tell people. So um
Especially
yeah,
people that look like us.
yeah,
We
yeah.
had
And I
we are here doing it on our own.
and we sometimes we don't see the value in that, because we feel like the competition
Mm.
is doing something better than you are, when you don't even know what the competition can and can't do.
Wow.
So it's a lot of mental struggles, I think, a lot of people encounter when they're trying to grow themselves, because you're thinking this is what other people, oh, that person, they always shine. But have you realized that maybe that they're taking a little extra step to get them some coaching? So you may not realize that that ability that's showing through might have been due to some coaching or some kind of
Some other
something.
support, something
Yes,
else,
some
right?
kind of support. It's not all I'm just doing this on my own. Some cases there are. Some people have that natural knack.
Hmm.
Others, they need some help. And
Right.
it's more often than not. So I think we have to get out of our own way.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things that we put our money in that we don't. If you added it up, would it doesn't give you that value. It's aesthetically there, but
Hmm.
add it up and put into your something that's not seen and see where you go. And it's a mindset. That's the biggest part of grit, if you will, is mindset. Not just the other parts, the perseverance, endurance, all of those things that we know it means. Um, on paper, it is a mindset. It carries you through everything, you know, in addition to grit, your spiritual life, all those things that you that are unseen in you carry you through. And mindset is one of the biggest ones that I think I've learned
Yeah.
in all that I've done. It's your mindset. If you go in there thinking negatively, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be that way. And
Right.
it's going to take, some people come in, might take them 30 minutes to change their attitude for the day. You might not change your attitude until 4 o'clock, and at that point the day has been bad. So it's your mindset. It really does set the tone as well, is your mindset.
I agree. I love all of that because it definitely is a mindset. Which, and then there are mindset coaches out there. So when you talked about mental blocks and mental struggles, people who we think are competition, they've already found some ways to get over that, and we're still
Hmm.
spinning our wheels
Right.
a lot of
Exactly.
excuse me, a lot of the
Hmm.
times. I was going to ask you about if there was a part of your areas, because you've been on this track for your professional growth, and it sounds like you've been in tuned in some personal growth as well. Do you think there is some part of your area of your life that you ignored? And you mentioned law school, but I don't know
Hmm.
if you took a different path and wanted to focus on something happened, you decided not to do law school, you stopped. Did you ignore law school for a reason?
um all those things, all of those things that come into play, because I was, again, I did the route of working full
Hmm.
time and going in the evening. And when you have certain types of leadership positions, it is hard to, it falls on you. So something will suffer in that area. So you have to, I do have to make some career choices in order to keep going, because I know that I can't go and not work. So I have to work. I have to figure out what is going to be the best fit to finish that. And it's definitely not ignored. It's definitely trying to figure out that fit that's going to get me through that program, because it's not the same as going through grad school and working.
Hmm.
It is truly competitive, and it is truly about being in the top in order to stay in the program. So it's not the same as, the grade that you get is your grade. It's
Hmm.
on a curve, so it's definitely different learning environment. Um, but I did ignore it for 12 years prior to going back. So it was a situation of, I should have done it 12 years ago. Why didn't I? When I was fresh into graduate
Hmm.
school, why didn't I do that dual degree program? No clue. Just thinking that this was the easy way out,
Hmm.
going through that young 20s mindset that I had time to do that, when not really knowing that at that time. So again, if I had talked to someone that coached me through that, I probably would have made that decision before and just gone through it and powered through it at that age versus trying to power through it now. So
Right.
uh honestly, but it ignoring in professionally ignoring or downplaying your abilities because there are people that can't do what you can do but say they can, in those settings. So that's been interesting. And you're watching them not be able to do it, and then all of a sudden the eyes turn for you to do it, and I'm like, well, you put your money and you bet on that.
Mm-hmm.
And professionally, for me to sit back and allow it, I did. Yeah, because you didn't bet on me, I'm going to let you continue to play through that, because I'm not going to come in on the back end to fix something where this person had 9 months to do something, but you're putting something on my shoulders to do it in 3.
Wow.
No, that's not something that I'm going to take up, because at this point it was never on me to begin with. So when we get in those environments, we have to recognize that, okay, so you gave this person 9 months to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they didn't do it within the 9 months, you want me to create something and do something in 3 months because that's when it's due. No, give me the 9 months,
Right.
or allow them to finish. And then once they turn in whatever they do, we're going to move forward. And if you're going to go in a different direction, allow me the same amount of time. So those things, those types of things that people have placed on you, I've ignored my abilities in those settings,
Mm-hmm.
because I am not going to give you and tell you that I have these type of abilities for me to do it in the 12th hour. I want all the hours. I want everything that's allotted to me in order for it to be something you see from me, instead of seeing a product that I have to push through really quickly and then you're judging me on that small window of time. That's oftentimes what happens in these types of settings that I work in, when it comes to projects and management and things like that. I've ignored that I have those abilities because they want to give it to someone else to do, but then want to pick it up for you to pick up and do it, because that someone else you thought could do it can't and didn't perform, and they keep moving up. So I'm like, well, if I'm not going to
Wow.
go anywhere, I'm not going to do the work.
Wow.
So that's how I've handled it in the past. Going forward is, at the door, and if you choose someone else, then you choose someone else, but then that's going to be hands off for me. That's what I've learned. Not that I've ignored what I've done. I've also said that my ability is worth being at the table as well. So I've started working on my different reporting skills and different things that I
Mm-hmm.
know that I've pushed down, because you weren't going to ask me to do it anyways because you want someone else to do it. That's fine. But I've slowly but surely pulled them out my arsenal and brought them back up to the forefront, because now it's time for change. So now when you ignore them, are you pushing them away? Not pushing them away. You're not using them. And so now you
Mm-hmm.
have to shore them up. So I think that's my experience. I've ignored it, and certain skill sets that I've had, because they weren't being used or acknowledged. And so now that I'm looking to shift, I have to pull them back out and I have to shore them up to make sure that I can do them, and that I can do it at the top level,
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, at my top ability, to be able to professionally succeed in another environment. So that's the path I'm on now. So I'm like, oh great, I know I can do this, but I haven't done it 2 to 3 years. So now I have to pull these things back out and start making them work for me, so that I can move on and do different things in different agencies or different programs, and not ignore myself in that, and
Mm-hmm.
not ignore those skills in myself per se. And speaking of ignoring things, it's sometimes we can push back those skills that we do have, in order to, since you're not using them, I'm going to use this set of skills over here that I know I can. I mean, we all have a lots of skills, but in certain
Right.
jobs they require certain things. So when you have to pull those other ones back out, they go ignored because you don't use them. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that I think I'm working on, are the ignored skills, and things that I can do.
I love it. You said a lot in there, especially your choice about law school and being what's happening at work. And that goes back to that grit exhaustion that you
Hmm.
talked about, and those mental blocks. And now we have a better understanding and seeing, because we think it's just us. And you're putting like a lot of words
Hmm.
to a lot of things that I went through. And it's like, well, I
Hmm.
don't want to do all of that because I literally had to fight over here. I'm exhausted. I have these abilities. People are ignoring them. I then you're battling with yourself, like
Right.
you are gifted and talented to do something, and then
Yes.
that does something mentally. It's like, well, is this not good enough? There's a lot going on up here.
Yeah,
And
it does. It does. But you have to compartmentalize what you're actually, okay, you're hiring me to be good at this right now, but that's what I'm going to be good at. I'm not going to bring those other things into play because that's not what you're looking at. But I know that I can do them. So, like you said, you have to make sure you are the talents that you do have, and the things that you are capable of doing, you can still do them, because sometimes ignoring them causes them to fall off. And that's
mm-hmm.
where in your personal and professional life, I want to keep these skills as high as the other ones that I'm using, um, or my talents. I want to keep them as sharp as possible. So that might be another way you can keep pouring into yourself, is keeping those other talents that you have sharpened, even though you're not using them in this particular setting. There's another setting that you can use them in, and you will move on from those settings that you are currently in, that will require your other talents. So yeah, that's I think that's a dynamic that in and of itself we have to learn to balance as well, and not always in every work environment be the best talent.
Yeah, I love that. I had two other questions. I had a question about what does embracing brilliance. That's the movement I'm doing
Hmm.
and pursuing, embracing brilliance. And I think you answered that. You were talking about the skill sets that that you already have. If you're not able to do them or not allowed to do them in your professional space, that doesn't mean not do it. Find some other avenue to keep
Hmm.
those things sharp. um, the other question I had was, what would you tell your younger self? And I think you answered this, and I was like, this was brilliant advice. Only do the skill set that the job required you to do, because you don't
Hmm.
always have to be the best talent in that particular environment.
You
And
don't.
I think women who look like us, we're always aiming for the best, to be the
Hmm.
best. We give them everything, and it's like they didn't ask you to do that, but we're
Right.
so, that's how we're kind of like subconsciously
Wired.
trained, wired
Yeah,
to do.
we're wired to do. Hmm.
And I wish someone had told me that, because it's like, well, I don't want people to think this any kind of think a certain way about me, but that has nothing to do with it.
Right.
That keeps you from
It,
getting that grit exhaustion and those
correct.
mental blocks.
After the fact. Um, that's exactly where that's where it'll put you. If you can tell your 20-year-old self, even your 30-year-old
30,
self,
yep.
it's a good shift. It's a great shift to be able to move yourself into, um, okay, so they hired me to do this. Even though I have I've displayed everything that I can do. This is what they want me to do,
Hmm.
and be good at that and excel at that. And that is on the professional side, that you will check those boxes. Absolutely. They're not asking you to do any of those other things.
No.
Not that you can't, but they're not asking for that, and they're not looking for that. So to shine in that is pointless in that environment. Doesn't mean you can't shine elsewhere, as what you're doing now. You shine in that area very well. So it doesn't mean that where you weren't shining, but I can also do these things over here. But that's not what they want. And that going in the door, what they want. You just want to do more because you want to do more, and that's in us. That's on us.
Yeah.
So when that coaching piece does come in to tell you, do what is on that paper. Do not do anything else outside of that, because your feelings will be very hurt. And then
Very.
operating in those hurt feelings is very hard to not operate in once they become hurt. So yes, and we do have to be willing to learn and grow. Then that's the part of growth. You have to be willing to learn, and learning in certain environments can be difficult, but sometimes you learn. You
Right.
learn in those environments. So I say that to say, take the lesson,
Hmm.
watch how certain people operate and move, incorporate some, and not don't incorporate some, but you will learn something in most environments that you're in. But do take the lesson regardless if it was a good environment for you or
Right.
not. Do take the lesson with you, because that part they can't ever take from you, where if you're moving on to other spaces. But I just wish that I would have learned that I did not have to do everything and be great at it. I just need to be great at what's on this paper and what's on this PD, and make that great. And that's, that's ultimately where I've arrived. And I'm like, I don't give you any more than what you're going to give me on that paper, because that's all you're going to give me. It doesn't change. If I give you more, it does not change.
Exactly. And then that goes
Paper.
back to when you were saying how to flip it. It was like, well, you need to reserve this over here to do the stuff you really want to do.
Hmm. And that's the exact key for me. And most people will learn that doing the extra, it'll either make people mad at you that are above you because they couldn't do it,
Wow.
and they're depending on you to bring that side to them, because they'll take it from you if you gladly give it,
Right.
without repercussion. So we have to learn that within ourselves, that everything that we have is of value, and we can improve on things.
Mm-hmm.
We can be better than we were yesterday.
Exactly.
Is the point. But we have to know that, and we have to understand that, and everything isn't a fight when it comes to what you have. Do what you're supposed to do on the paper. Don't deviate from that. You can bring a little bit of extra,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of your, when you bring how you conduct and execute, you can bring your integrity and those things, but do not bring anything above and beyond on that paper. They
I
tell you how to
agree.
they tell you in your performance expectations exactly what a 5 is, and you can stay right there. Perform consistently at that 5 of what their expectation is, not what your expectation of 5 is. Perform there and stay in for that.
Because it's gonna be a 5 regardless. No 6, 7 is still a 5.
It's not gonna be nothing else. They can't give you nothing more. So I mean, a 3 is optimal. If you stay within your 3, you are performing. But if they tell you exactly how to get those additional points, do that, and don't put any other spins on it, because that's where we start to get our feelings hurt, and that I did this and I did this and this other person didn't do it and they got the same. That's because that was what was on the paper. We
Right.
got to stay in, we got to stay within what's on the paper, because once we start getting outside of that paper, it doesn't even matter.
And then not
Thank
being
you.
attached to what that means to ourselves or our ego, because that's really what it is. It's our ego that comes in saying,
Yeah.
I'm going to do all of this. And it's like, and then we take that on. It's like, well, if I don't do this, what are you going to think about me? And it's like, they're going to think what they're going to think.
Yeah. They said this is stay at the 3, because this is what they think. 4 and 5, that's how you get it. But there's nothing beyond those 4 and 5s that's going to help you. You're not going to be better than the person next to you, because on their paper, their 4 and their 5 might be different. So, we have to learn just to stay within our lane, forget perception, because no matter what the perception is, it's all going to be different across every board you have, and get out of your way when it comes to that, and stay within what's on your document. Don't go beyond those 4 corners of it. Do not, those 4 edges of the paper, you stay right on that paper, because if you go off of it, it's not going to matter.
Right.
And that's where you feel hurt. And that's when then you start operating in that hurt, and
not valued, then it goes self-worth, self-esteem, all of that. Yeah.
Focus on what their value is on that paper, and that's it.
I love it. Okay, last question. This has been I love all of this, because that is so true. I wish I would have known that. And I've even told my younger sister that, not in those words, but it makes sense. Like, look, this is and she has a master's degree, but not working at that level. And she's bringing in a master's degree. And I was like, just stop doing all that.
This is what they want. Get that.
And she has been so much better for that. I was like, it's not going to take away your master's degree because you're not doing that. But you coming home upset and all of that because they don't see you. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally understand.
Okay, so where do you see yourself, like either 10, 20 years from now, with all of your experiences, everything that you've learned personally, professionally? Where can you see yourself 10, 20 years out?
Um, Still learning and still growing. Ultimately, I don't want to be the same person that I want to be the same to my core, but I
Right.
want to learn to be different and learn to value things differently and change and grow. I definitely see myself still. I do like public service. I do, but I want to expand those skill sets to see what's out there that's different for me. That still relates to public service. So that
Mhm.
could be on a consulting side. That could be on many different sides of it. But I do want to explore that ability in myself because I've often thought that it only resided on one side. So I do want to explore my abilities outside of public service, um, true public service, and see how that works and what that looks like because it's different in every
Right.
aspect. And um, happily retired if you want to go all the way out 20 years. Happily retired, and helping others, helping others learn how to make good career choices and career moves within, public service or beyond. That's definitely, and I do see myself accomplishing my ignored goals and shoring up some of those ignored skills. So I do believe there is time to do that. Doesn't have to be all of them. It could just be one of them, as far as
Mhm.
I'm concerned. That's success on some front for me. But definitely still growing and always learning. I never stop. I always want to learn something. So I'm always striving
Right.
to learn something, whether it's personal or professional. I like weird things. I'm a nerd on some levels of science and things like that, but I'm not a scientist, but I do like to learn weird things. So I learned those things. So, just staying, happy on those fronts, because if you're not
Mhm.
happy, you're
Mhm.
really, truly not going to be happy anywhere
Right.
doing anything. So I do believe my happiness is important. So I want to continue to pursue my happiness, no matter what that looks like.
Wow. Well, I loved all of this. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your thoughts about personal growth, professional growth. What does that mean to still be brilliant and use your skill sets, your talents, how you show up? And I think a lot of professional women needed to hear all of those nuggets that you dropped. I was taking my own notes. Like
Oh,
I was like, that is right. And I like that you put words to how a lot of women, especially women who look like us, how they may feel, and they think they're
yes.
the only ones. And it's like, no, you're not the only one. And we think it's mental. We think we're crazy. And it's like, no, we're mentally exhausted. We're grit exhausted. We have all these
Hmm.
blocks. And my biggest takeaway from what you said was we've and I thought about this, but we keep stuff to ourselves, but we're in this
Hmm.
competition with other people, not realizing that they have a whole gang of support. And then we think they're so much better than us when they
Exactly.
really aren't. So
Hmm.
I was like, I need to share that with more people. Like, stop looking at your competition thinking that is just you and them, because
Hmm.
it may not be.
They're not even thinking about you.
And that's the other thing. They're not even thinking about you.
They're thinking
Number
about their
one,
next move.
they're over there, and
Yes.
they're not hung up on trying to do it on their own for the most part. They got their
No.
team and their people, however that may look, career coach, writing coach, whatever.
Hmm.
They're getting the support because
Hmm.
we focus on our talent and our skill set, and a lot of times we are better than a lot of people, but we get up here in our heads and
Right.
it's a wrap.
All the time. I've experienced it more often than not. So
Mhm.
I think a lot of people experience it, and um, may or may not admit it. Quite frankly, because they want to maintain that look of success, of what they believe is successful. So I totally am looking forward to seeing all of your interviews and learning myself, because I know you have many, many people to pull from that will just drop nuggets as well. So I'm looking forward to listening to and taking in that as well on your journey with you.
Thank you. So yes, thank you so much. And thank you for being open enough to share that for
You're
women,
welcome.
and to let everyone know that you are not alone on this journey, especially in the professional space. So
That's
I
half the battle, sharing with anyone really that you can, I guess, learn from or not feel off put by, I guess, or put off by. Because a
Mhm.
lot of times people don't want to share any of that struggle because it is could be used against them. So I'm an open book. It is what it is.
It is. Yes, I have a charm bracelet. It is what it. At this point, it
It
is what it
is
is.
what it is. It is what it's gonna be, and that's what I have to live by.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you all
You're
for
welcome.
listening and watching with me. Thank you for spending time with us for my sorority sister, Josette Sykes. If you
Bye.
have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And I will see you all next time.
Bye.